So this is the Avijja Sutta, Sutta on ignorance, Anguttara 1061. Bhikkhus, it is said that no first point of ignorance is evident, before which there was no ignorance, and afterwards ignorance came to be. So as you said quite a lot, ignorance is beginningless. Ignorance of what?
Well, you can answer it in many different ways, but the point is, practically speaking, you don't start in a neutral position. You already begin hindered, obstructed, obsessed, limited, restricted. So that's what ignorance is.
Why is it that I mean, yeah, obviously it's because that's how it is, but why is it so sort of difficult to not see the possibility of not ignoring?
Well, because you have no reference point that's not affected by ignorance. So any standpoint you take partakes in ignorance, it's rooted in ignorance. And that's why it's so difficult. So no standpoint can just suddenly show you a situation. There are no markers for it. Any standpoint you take will be ignorant. So, top to bottom. So then what do you do? How do you then figure your way out? Well, that's where the gradual training comes in. You figure it out by upholding certain behaviors, sense restraint, virtue, which in return diminishes. Not that you can see it, not at the time. You can see it later on, after which your efforts would have been verified, but initially you can't see. You can make some sense, out of it if you're authentic and intelligent and so on, but fundamentally comes down to doing it regardless of your standpoints. Keeping the precepts, guarding the sense doors, watching your intentions, and so on. And that diminishes that weakens that vicious cycle of ignorance feeding more ignorance, standpoints feeding more standpoints. And if you stick to those training precepts and tame your mind within that, then you get to see your situation from the inside. And that's Sottapati basically. And that's what we said in that the relay chariot sutta. Like the views will be purified, not because you figured it all out intellectually and made sense out of it. The views are purified when your behavior is purified, where the composure is regained within that. So samadhi direct result from nothing else other than sense restraint and precepts. Purification of the views is a result of that.
But that's not natural. That's not something that one would. I mean, yeah. What is natural is to want pleasure, or is to.
Yeah, fundamentally, the most natural thing is to put your standpoints first.
Yeah.
The craving for the views. That's why the views are the most blameworthy thing. The wrong views is the most blameworthy thing, as the Buddha said. So yeah, you would go against that grain, against that tendency. Not that you can stop having views, but you can certainly stop emphasizing them. So put your views aside, review your behavior, your actions, and purify it like a skilled goldsmith would be purifying gold. First from coarse impurities, then more refined impurities, then more refined impurities. And then, next thing you know, you don't have those standpoints anymore.
You can see what precedes the standpoints.
No, you just don't have them anymore.
Basis.
They're gone because they have been unplugged.
Because you've seen the context, or you've been able to.
No, because you purify them. You purify them through sense restraint, watchfulness of your intentions, general taming of your mind. And then these views have lost their power, their weight.
their
The
ability.
standpoints, yeah, the wrong emphasis is disappeared. So you can have still thoughts and standpoints, but they won't be carrying the same weight. They won't be emphasized, because now you know exactly how the mind is stained, how the views are diminished, and how the freedom from suffering is developed. Through gradual training, not through the opinions on it. And the opinions that persist would then just be, without that weight, would be a correct representation of what you did. So, the right view.
So, like an arahant cannot ignore.
No, because arahant's mind cannot be untamed anymore. Cannot be provoked anymore, cannot be disturbed, cannot be perturbed. Thus, no views, no standpoints can arise.
So the sutta gives 10 fuels for the for ignorance.
For ignorance. So, just to clarify before we get into that, so ignorance is not on the level of the views. It's not on the level of, I haven't read enough suttas or figured things out. It's on the level of that self-induced delusion, distraction, greed, aversion through your acts and your choices. That is what ignorance is. Choosing to turn a blind eye.
That's basically what the sutta says. Yeah. Yet it is evident that there is a specific condition for ignorance. I say that ignorance is fueled by the 5 hindrances. As you say, yeah, it's acting out of
pressures, obsessions. I mean, the 5 hindrances, they all boil down to greed, aversion, distraction, one way or the other. So choosing to act out of those things, you are fueling avidya. You're fueling the attitude of ignoring, turning a blind eye, of not being clear.
Yeah, the translation of moha is delusion.
Delusion, yeah.
Moha sounds like delusion.
Yeah.
Like moha. Yeah. You're a fool kind of thing. But I like the translation of distraction, because that's a practical thing. You know when you're distracting yourself. There's some recognition there. But I guess so. Most person who's ignorant is distracted.
Yeah. And he's ignorant because he keeps himself distracted.
Yeah. But he doesn't know that he's necessarily distracted. He's engaged with the world.
Yeah, in the same sense, an intoxicated person is not aware of that he's drunk.
I was just going
until he
to,
sobers up.
I was just going to bring up the intoxication, like even the way that the Buddha talks about, like the intoxication of youth, the intoxication of life,
and health,
and health, in the sense that like old age, sickness, and death are not things that are hidden from people. They're not things that are they're very obvious.
Nor are they things that will come later. They're already here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're already subject to the possibility of people all around you can fall sick, die, get old, and so you could pay more heed to them, but it's like this, the feeling being intoxicated of you
and intoxication cannot exist on its own. In the same sense, you would sober up if you stop drinking.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're not sobering up means because you're still consuming alcohol. In this sense, the fact that you're not sobering up from these intoxications is because you're still consuming things that keep you intoxicated. Sensual desire, acting out of aversion, and distraction.
And it's like a similar principle of trying, basically forgetfulness almost, trying to deliberately induce forgetfulness of
the
things
danger
that are obvious.
Yeah, because it's like a coping habit.
But it's funny because you only need to try and forget that thing if it's already kind of on some level recognize that it's a problem. Otherwise you wouldn't need to distract yourself or cope.
And the forgetfulness is a pleasure.
Exactly.
It's a safety.
Yeah.
Even though you know what you're forgetting about. Just that shutting your eyes covering your head is pleasant.
But if that's the funny thing, though, like if you are, say, even in terms of intoxication, like if you're in a situation where you know it's really, you must not forget, you must not become just careless or something, I don't know, you're driving or something or whatever. I suppose most people, at least, if you have some degree of carefulness or wisdom or whatever, you wouldn't, if you might, I don't know, drink a small amount of alcohol or something, but if you were to realize, oh, I'm starting to become intoxicated, it would be seen as dangerous. It would be seen as, okay, I can't let myself forget this because I can see the danger of forgetting. So, like, in other words, you can only take pleasure in forgetting if you're already intoxicated to some degree.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point. Like, you already start as being intoxicated, so there's no reference point of sobriety.
Yeah.
The neutral position is seeing the danger.
Well, that's how you work towards the neutral position. Then yes, you could still technically become careless, but then the danger is much more apparent in doing so, as opposed to somebody who is in the beginning when there's like no reference point for the danger. And also, like, that's why, like, I know when I started it in the suttas, back as a layman, and so obviously, you have all these views and so on, but I remember, like, you read the suttas and it just seemed almost as if a matter of fact that monks would just get the right view upon going into seclusion. Oh, there is the Buddha, then they go and dwell diligent and withdrawn. But at the same, that was kind of not quite fitting with the assumption that the right view is on the level of figuring out things and having this magical kind of breakthrough insight type into stuff that just suddenly surprised you. So it was like, what are they diligent about? What are they withdrawn from? Where do, like, so if somebody makes the effort, right view was the necessary result of it. If somebody makes that right effort, and then just he comes, he talks to the Buddha instructs him, he goes and he dwells resolute and diligent, and then in no time, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then you might think, oh well, because they were lucky talking to the Buddha and so on. But no, they were the ones diligent and resolute. So diligent and resolute about what? About spinning their mind constantly around how to figure this out, was it rehashing everything? Well, maybe to some extent, but there's probably some more kind of practical unifying thread that all these different monks, regardless, one might have arrived through faith, another might have arrived through discernment and reasoning, another one might have arrived through composure. Either way, they all simply partake in diligence and resoluteness of keeping the mind away from unwholesome states, and they all arrive at the right view and arahantship. Because you realize, because that's where the emphasis is. It's not on a magical breakthrough through sensation experience of a meditation. It's not certainly through scholastic figuring out, the implicit meaning, the hidden meanings of the Pali terms. And it's also not on the level of account of just mere reasoning. You can reason all you want, but as I said many times before, if the mind is not tamed through the gradual training in the right order, or withdrawal and diligence, again, diligence not, I'm diligent, I'm going to walk 20 kilometers and carry 50 liters of water on my back and live on top of a mountain, and I'm diligent. Sure, that's one way of being diligent, but that's not the diligence we talk about. Diligence that matters is diligence of recognizing the unwholesome intention whenever it arises on a day-to-day basis, and simply not acting out of it, enduring it without losing context in regard to it. Every single time, no exception. That's all. That's literally the all that you need to do. And then whether you reason, whether you ponder, whether you speculate, that will all sort of fall into place.
I say that the 5 hindrances are fueled by the 3 kinds of misconduct. So
Body,
misconduct by body, speech
and mind. Acting out.
And the three kinds of misconduct are fueled by a lack of sense restraint, which is basically implicit with.
So, why can't I stop acting out? I'm sure everybody at some point has asked themselves that question. Well, here's why. Because you're not restrained enough. You're still willingly, consciously, in full volition, choosing non-sense restraint when those options present themselves. Sure, maybe not as bad as you used to be or something, but factually, if you still can't help but act out, it's because you still have not purified the restraint. The relay chariots.
Seeing one's responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing that the direct reason for you still acting out is your choices made on a day-to-day basis that contradict the sense restraint. So you're still fueling it, and then it burns. You can be all surprised all you want, but you are the one pouring the fuel.
So I say that the lack of sense restraint is fueled by a lack of mindfulness and situational awareness. So, like you're saying, this contradiction, you're acting out of.
Yeah, so you lose sense restraint because you lost the context. So how do you lose the context then? How do you lose mindfulness? Does that happen accidentally, just like you blink and it's gone? Or again, by choosing to repeatedly intend, engage with things that you know eventually lead to unwholesome. So they might not be bad at its face value right there, obviously bad, but you know, like, yeah, but this will lead to what it led so many times before. And you ignore that hint, you ignore that sign, that cue.
Not guarding the sense doors, basically.
Yeah. And then when it comes to breaking the sense restraint, it's like the most natural decision at the time, because the mind is already inclined in that direction way before. So now you can't stop that momentum.
Whereas if one practices sense restraint, then the possibility of seeing this context of the already arisen nature of experience preceding myself, or that is possible. That
remains unobstructed.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's always there, but the possibility of seeing it.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, while the views are still emphasized, a person might be making loads of effort, like tremendous amount of effort to keep clarifying what's already there, arisen before me, not mine, but not actually purifying the sense restraint, withdrawal, and not acting out of intentions. So your effort's wasted in a sense, because you're emphasizing the end, not the beginning of it, of that development.
The first chariot.
Yeah. So, yeah, sure, bring back that, I remind myself of the context, but then also continue and ask yourself, why did you lose the context in the first place? Why do you need to keep reminding yourself? Why do you need to keep rehashing things that you understood? Why are they still liable to doubt? Why are you bothered by it? Oh, well, because the taming that precedes it has not been developed, not sufficiently developed. So, of course, it's not going to be perfect. It's not like you're suddenly going to stop everything else and you do 1, 2, 3. Sure, technically, theoretically possible. So the mind will still be jumping at the end, in the beginning, the middle, and so on. But as long as you now know what comes first is first, you will not get too carried away, say, in spinning, the doubt and trying to figure it out, while you know that, well, this is the result, this is the symptom of an underlying problem of insufficient enduring things on the right level, insufficient restraint. And when I say insufficient restraint, does not mean, okay, so now I will really restrain myself. I will lock myself in a little box. I won't move. I will barely breathe. I will not do anything, because that's not sense restraint. That's now self-torture. Sense restraint is when you are moving around freely throughout your day, and then you have an intention that's directed towards sense desire, aversion, distraction on the level of the body, speech or mind. And that's which you don't act. That's what you endure.
So they say that you know that that's what you're supposed to do. You know enough of that sense. Indulgence is wrong. It's going to block my progress, everything. So I'm restraint. I keep precepts. And then the pressure comes to break those precepts, or break restraint. And all the knowledge you have doesn't work.
Yeah, it's too distant. It became theoretical.
It's very nice. It's right. It's deep and meaningful, whatever. But it's too
far away.
So now that and you break your restraint to whatever degree, and you and you suffer on account of that, and then you try again to build up the restraint, and listen. Hear the same discussion on sense restraint again and again, and then the pressure builds up, and once again with all that knowledge you break that sense restraint. So what? And that's to say that's a person who's just alone doing the practice themselves. I think that's you can get stuck in that loop by yourself. So you got all the information about the dangers of sensual indulgence. You're trying to keep sense restraint, yet
so then the question
you yourself are breaking it,
and
then trying again and breaking it, so you just insulate it.
But that's
isolated.
The thing. The point is, when it comes to that, when your inspiration and things kind of drifts away into distance, and now pressure to break sense restraint is there, and you act out of it. Well, see, the point is that pressure to break the sense restraint does not just magically appear out of nowhere. Does not come overnight. You were just like one moment you were really like full on established in the right context, everything is clear, and then next moment it's, oh, you're about to act out. Now all of it is gone suddenly, 100 miles away. No. Means there have been things in between that person was careless about, that person was negligent, distract himself with. So it was accumulating.
A kind of gradual training in the opposite.
Yeah, so it was exactly, of course.
Way.
Whatever mind frequently thinks and ponders, that's what it will incline towards, as the suttas would say. So you might not be thinking core stuff, but there is stuff on the level of distraction, indolence, oblivion, and so on, that you are repeatedly engaging, even in solitude and so on, and then the pressure is building up and the clarity is drifting away. So that's what I said before, like, it's recognizing the little things. And that's, the Buddha said it himself, like the skillful cook and so on. Like, before these states of mind come and pressure you, where you kind of know you're going to lose sense restraint to a degree, you start learning and foreseeing, like the little telltales.
Dangers in the slightest fault.
Exactly. So this is not a fault, technically, but every single time in the past when I went and was engaging with things of this nature, here and there, I did have sensual lust arise later on, unrelated to this directly, but still related to the acts around it. So, and that's what I mean, you build it up. So it's not that kind of that pressure that has been accumulated and now it's making you act. That doesn't come out of nowhere. That's the point. Because it might seem that way, because for the same reason as we said when we started this, because you're still emphasizing the end. failing to understand that what you're going through is still the result of other actions that you've been ignoring. Cannot be otherwise. Because sometimes you can feel like, but look, I'm doing everything right, and now there is this pressure here. That would be impossible. That would be impossible.
So in the sutta, there's an analogy which is like, perfect for describing what you just said.
Go ahead.
So it says, it's like when the rain pours down on a mountaintop, and the water flows downhill to fill the hollows, the crevices, and the creeks. As they become full, they fill up the pools. The pools fill up the lakes. The lakes fill up the streams.
It accumulates.
The streams fill up the rivers.
Spills over.
And as the rivers become full, they fill up the ocean. That's the fuel for the ocean, and that's how it is filled up. In the same way, when the factor of associating with... these are the factors we didn't come to yet. When the factor of associating with bad people is fulfilled, it fulfills the factor of listening to an untrue teaching. When the factor of listening to an untrue teaching is fulfilled, it fulfills the factor of a lack of faith. And
that's exactly what I've been describing. See, like, it doesn't mean untrue teaching, some ridiculously wrong views. No, it means simply wrong instructions. Instructions not clear enough, not emphasizing the right things. So you will lack faith means basically you will lack ability to emphasize that which doesn't seem natural to emphasize, that which doesn't seem the most important or pressing thing to emphasize. You won't emphasize it. You'll emphasize what you think you should emphasize. When you start hearing you come across the teaching that's actually rightly expounded and tells you, well, you should stop emphasizing your views, you should stop emphasizing the end result of it, and start foreseeing how these things occur, not in terms of psychologizing and just explain to yourself how this happened, but the moments of the day when you are deciding to go against the sense restraint or distraction, you start emphasizing that. And as I said, you will have no immediate criteria that that's the right way to do it, because you're pressured on the level of the views. You're pressured to clarify the views, to resolve the views, to attain the views. But it's like, you got to put that second and actually emphasize body, speech, and mind, actions rooted in greed, aversion, delusion. And they say, okay, I've been emphasizing it, but what now? What now? Where is my view? Where is my view? Well, you have to have faith and keep emphasizing the right order of things, the right development. And then your own pressure of where are my views and what's happening will subside.
It's like, I think it relates back to what you were just saying about that pressure. You're trying to be sense restrained, and then pressure builds up, and at some point you break the sense restraint, and then, oh damn it, I broke it again. It's like it can kind of think that because I acted out of it, therefore this danger and problems that I thought I was understanding must not be clear enough. I must think about it more. That's completely like the wrong.
Yeah, you can think about it more, but you need to realize that it doesn't matter how much you kind of manage to sort of build up that inspirational kind of thinking, it will fade away. It's natural. Things come and go. So you still have to then recognize that you really need to start emphasizing that, the behavioral aspect of it, and things that you won't do. And see, the pressure will build up inevitably. And then you realize, okay, I need to act out. But then you still have an option as to what you act out towards. It doesn't need to be sensuality. Like, I need to act out. It's just too much pressure. Yes, I was careless. I still don't know to what extent and how. Okay, well, go for a walk. Yes, technically it's acting out, but it's not acting out on the level of fully distracting yourself with sense desires or winding yourself up with ill will and so on. Because those kind of neutral acting outs, or not as unwholesome acting outs, won't make you drift too far away, which means then you can recompose better. That's all the simile in that sutta where the Buddha said, like, even if a monk, having gone to the forest, he's not making any effort, he's just sleeping all day and having sensual thoughts all day long, and nevertheless, he's in a more suitable environment, his mind will eventually calm down and compose. Consequently, you have a monk in the middle of the village who is not sleeping, who is very diligent, who is not having lustful thoughts, but he's in the unsuitable environment with constant exposure to sight, sound, smell, taste, touches, so his mind will lose composure.
I think there's also just an aspect that, it's not that I need to kind of clarify these things more so that there will be no pressure to act out.
Oh yeah.
It's so like the whole point is that you have to start by not acting out in the face of everything that's I must there is this pressure, but I don't act out of the pressure.
Yeah.
So like regardless of it, and that's how you would actually build up further clarity that would then make that pressure diminish in the future.
Yes, it's going to the village or the city, or as he's
traveling around.
Yes, it's these gradual distractions, gradual
erosions.
Yeah, it's like a cover-up, whereas in the forest it's kind of more of the opening.
Yeah.
Things are a bit more apparent and clear to you as the person who's there alone. Your mind.
Basically, forest is like a pool that doesn't have anywhere else to spill further. Like on the base of the simile he read. So in the forest, your pool of sensual thoughts can fill up and pressures and so on, but there is nothing further external that can keep spilling further and cause more proliferation and more distraction and more density. So it remains in an environment that kind of is not suitable for that growth. If you remain in that environment, even if the mind is careless, sleepy, so on, lazy, sensual, it will come down because the environment just has nowhere else to spill.
Yeah, and it's easier to ignore those little faults when there's lots going on. Or, it's maybe being alone or isolated to a certain degree, your thoughts are clearer. So you kind of, those things that you are thinking, doing are clearer to you.
Yeah.
To some.
Yeah. Again, now that can become also I'll never see any person ever again.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize, no, it's all on the basis of where my intentions are, and I'm finding the environment that can support, like keeping the clarity in regard to my own choices. These little choices that would then result in building up these bigger pressures that then I would not be able to help myself and then act out of.
So it's like the clarity. So it's the clarity. So you're not clear what you're doing, these little things. You're not clear about the little things that you're doing, where they're leading to. But if you were clear...
Well, why are you not clear? Why would a person not be clear? Is that because they haven't read enough suttas, for example?
You're choosing at some...
Which means you are clear. Means you know, but you're choosing to ignore what you already know. So that's the reason for the lack of clarity. That's my point. Like, I'm not clear because I just don't know what to do. You already know. Deep down, you know exactly what not to do. Especially like, you read few suttas, have listened to some talks. It's more than enough to paint a clear picture of what should be done and what shouldn't be done. So, yes, the lack of clarity builds up, but not because you simply don't know what you're doing, but because on that smaller, subtler scale, you're actually going against the clarity that you know you already have. So what you know you shouldn't do, you're doing it and you're ignoring it. And then that builds up, and then it comes to the point of what you obviously know you shouldn't do means nothing. You still do it because you built it up so far. The pools have been filled up, so now you can just magically unplug it there.
So say someone's doing that constantly. That's the habit of restraining and then gradually slipping, concealing, knowing that you're doing something wrong, but knowingly kind of, and that's the habit.
Yeah.
That's the habit.
So what's the first step to break out of that habit?
Yeah, what will throw a spanner in that kind of thing?
What would throw a spanner in that kind of thing?
Because I know, it's clear to me that...
So it's clear that it's wrong.
Yeah, wrong.
You feel ashamed afterwards. You know you shouldn't have done it. Then you don't do it for a while. But then the carelessness, the distraction, the builds up, the lack of clarity. And then you do it again. And then same cycle. And then same cycle. and then same cycle. What's the first step to break that cycle? What is the growth in the discipline of a noble one?
Recognizing a mistake, an offense as an offense, or...
Well, recognizing is not enough.
Well,
this person recognizes it every time,
okay,
but then slips away and the recognition drifts away. So what's the act that's the spanner in the works?
Revealing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Bringing it out to the light, confessing it to somebody else. So you feel that shame, you feel that weight, you feel that disgust even, but it's out. You can't hide it anymore. That last layer of, oh well, this is just in here, it's gone now. And that's already the practice. That's already a way of addressing it.
It's like any addiction. Most people who are addicts, with drugs and so on,
basically,
they have to say it, but it doesn't just help saying it internally.
Yeah.
And then I know heroin is wrong, and now they give it up. They always have to ask or speak to others, say it out loud in a group, keep repeating it to themselves. I'm an alcoholic. My name is such and such.
Well, it helps with, like, you might sort of feel you might feel ashamed of yourself when you do these things, but if you really say it to somebody else, it's like, it kind
it's out of your hands.
Absolutely, yeah. And it really forces you to, but it helps to take up responsibility for it as well, because now, it's not only me who knows about this, other people do as well. So.
Yeah.
So it's like one thing as monastics we have that, that's the protocols. You break a rule, you confess it. But as a lay person, just keeping the 5 precepts, 8 precepts by themselves outside, that can be a big obstacle, I reckon. Because who you confess to?
Yeah.
Yourself. Well.
So, but no, if somebody wants to train their mind and knows right is right and wrong is wrong and what they shouldn't be doing, and then they keep losing the context, going back to it, building up, then you say it. You say it publicly, like to a group, to a monk, to 2 monks, to 5 monks, just because it's like, this is who I am, and that's not going to feel pleasant, and that can be more than enough to bring you back into shape. That's like, it's the growth in the practice.